Hey, by the way, tonight's game, New York wins that outright.
You know he's on top. Million subs, he never gonna flop. Out of Chicago, where the streets don't sleep. Betting on games, making cash real deep. Crystal ball for sports, he knows the lines. He's a sports aficionado, the money he finds. From football to basketball, he's always on point. Predicting winners never disappoints. He's got that hustle, that Chicago vibe. Making moves on the streets, cash on the side. With E, you know it's always a bet. He's the king of the game, never forget.
Hello and welcome to the Etoft21sports Show for August 26th. How is everyone doing? My name is Erik. I'm the man behind Etoft21sports. Absolutely loaded episode for you today. My boy Sterling from SilverStar Sports. Him and I are going to share our future bets for the AFC South. We'll share which players we're targeting, who we're fading, all that jazz. But before we get into all that, I would like to say thank you to the sponsor of the show, ProphetX. If you're not using ProphetX, go to the App Store, download the app, use promo code ETOFT21. That way they know old Uncle Rico sent you. Guys, this is the future of sports betting, the peer-to-peer stuff. Here in Illinois, they're starting taxes. I got a notification that Caesar's going to be 25-cent tax. FanDuel, DraftKings, 25-cent tax on every single bet. You can't make money long-term. All those cents add up. So peer-to-peer, that's the way to go. So download the app, use promo code ETOFT21. Those watching on YouTube, link in the description. Click that, it'll take you right to it. Now let's go ahead. Let's welcome this week's special guest from the Dirty of Cashville, my boy Sterling from SilverStar Sports. Sterling, how you doing today, my man?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me on. Always looking forward to talking some football, and great to have football back. I don't know if you caught the Kansas State-Iowa State game. College football was back last week. Got some good week one bets coming up, and then NFL starts next week. So great time.
I'm telling you what, man, you have not lived until you're grinding out Hawaii pick'em first half, dude. That was my big bet of the weekend. And I mean, that game started out, the kick returner fair caught the kickoff after Stanford kicked the field goal at the 1 yard line. I'm like, dude, like, what the fuck are you doing?
What are you doing?
Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. Also, too, the Farmageddon game with the muff punts. I was like, oh man, we're so back. We're so back.
Oh my god. Boss Alpha, what's up, my friend? Appreciate you checking in. Yeah, that game was sloppy, man. That game was so sloppy. So sloppy. So let's talk a little AFC South, dude. This concludes our preview show. Appreciate you coming on. Those who don't know, Sterling was the first ever guest when I started doing this about, I think it was 2 years ago. Let's jump into the Titans. Super Bowl 200-1 to win it. AFC 95-1 to win the South, plus 760. Over under 5.5 to make the playoffs, plus 370 to miss, minus 500. What say you about the Tennessee Titans, my friend?
You see, I am repping the Tennessee Titans as I am here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'd say for the first time in a long time, there's actually cautious optimism with the Titans. So, as I mentioned before, I live in Tennessee and I see a lot of Titans fans all the time, and they always give me these outlandish takes. They're saying, oh, we're going to make a wild card this year. Oh, we're going to the Super Bowl this year. Whatever it is, right? And it's usually way higher than the expectation is. But I think Tennessee fans have been burned the past couple of years. So even with all the hype and the optimism of Cam Ward, I think people have kind of tended their expectations. They're just excited to see Cam Ward. I don't think we've seen a rookie quarterback like Cam Ward that has come in and been as underhyped for being a number one pick, but he's super exciting to watch. Like, you turn on the Cam Ward tape, you'll see a rookie gunslinger. He's going to have a super exciting year. So I'm looking forward to watching Cam Ward. I think Calvin Ridley is going to have a super big season. He's a guy I'm targeting in all my fantasy leagues because he's going to eat. Another thing that I'm also paying attention to is Callahan, the coach. If you looked at the Titans season last year, there were so many games where it'd be a 14-14 game. They'd be right in it. And then all of a sudden, a muffed punt happens. They'd miss a field goal. And then it would just wear on the rest of the team. So looking to see if he can get the locker room right, help them have that mental fortitude, and help them take the next step. And then as we transition to talk about the defensive side of the ball, I think it's going to be a rough season because they can't really stop the run unless Sweat takes another step up. They can't really rush the passer apart from Jeffrey Simmons. They've got one of the worst linebacking cores in the NFL. And it's a major question if L'Jarius Sneed can stay healthy. So because of this, I actually hope they get into a ton of shootouts so that Cam Ward can shine. He can show off his big arm. And it will be a fun season in Tennessee.
Tennessee Titans are interesting to me. When we look at them, they have Bill Callahan as their offensive line coach, regarded as one of the best in the game. But when you look at their metrics from last year, 25th pass blocking, 31st run blocking, 27th sacks allowed, 25th in adjusted yards, major liability last season, bottom 10 in nearly every category. And they went out and they addressed that. They brought in Dan Moore. They brought in Kevin Seitler. They drafted Latham. Cushenberry, who was out last year, returning from the Achilles. They brought in Brendan James, add depth. On paper, this unit is going to improve. And my big, bold prediction, I think this is going to be a top 15 unit. I think we're going to see the Callahan offensive line be able to do what it did when he was the offensive line coach in Cleveland. Now, Will Levis, Jesus Christ, dude. He was so bad last year. Like, he was just inventing ways for them to lose games with his awful decision-making. They got Cam Ward. Ward, in my eyes, he's a better decision maker. He protects the football better. But when you watch him, when he was coming up, incarcerated Ward, Washington State, and at Miami, he's a first-read quarterback. And that's a big red flag to me, especially in the NFL, because defenses are going to be able to sit on that. He needs to develop into being able to read his progression. But I do feel he's going to be able to stop the bleeding, and they will be better than last year. When we look at the offense, short, high percentage throws, perfect for a rookie quarterback, get the confidence going. Callahan, very adaptable with in-game adjustments. I expect heavy use of in-breaking routes. They got Ridley, Lockett. They got the tight end, whose name I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce because but he's going to be a fantasy darling because Ward has shown us he likes to target the tight end. Titans threw more than they ran in 2024, but when they were ahead, now granted that was not that much, they like to slow it down, lean on the run. Now the big thing is they started off the season as an outside zone team and then switched to a power gap scheme. Now when we look at the offensive linemen they brought in, Moore and Zettler, that's going to confirm it's going to be more of a power gap type scheme. And we look at Tony Pollard last year, 3.28 yards per carry on zone, 4.72 yards per carry on gap. It makes sense why they're going to do this. Now, they invested $53 million, 2 first-round picks on their offensive line. They added Lockett. They got the rookie from Stanford, Erik Amino, who I think is a stud. Their pieces are there for this offense to be better, but it just comes in, do you trust Cam Ward? Because people forget at incarcerated Ward and at Washington State, this kid turned the ball over, and he had a ton of turnover-worthy throws while at Miami. Defensively, 3-4. They got Simmons, Joseph Day, Sweat. They should be better against the inside run. They were destroyed last year on the outside run. They need to do a better job stopping runs to the outside. Now, you mentioned Sneed. Health is critical. They have literally no DB, no cornerback 2 opposite of Sneed. So if Sneed's out, that moves everyone up a pecking order. The big issue, no pass rush, second fewest pressures, 4 fewest sacks. If the defense improves, Sneed stays healthy, I think this defense could make a jump. Overall look, offensive line is going to be improved. Callahan gives them a fighting chance to lean on the run and be successful late in games. Ward, upgrade over Levis, but he needs to improve on just not throwing to his first read. I don't think they're contenders right now. I think next year is the year we need to look to get invested in the Tennessee Titans.
I'd agree with all that you said. I'd also add that I'd say for the Titans, they're one of the few teams I'd say that the win-loss record this year doesn't matter as much as anyone else. It's mainly Cam Ward's development. Is Callahan the right coach? Also making sure those young guys on the offensive line like Skronsky and Latham start to come along. So yeah, I'm not necessarily concerned about the win-loss record. Just want to see the development for those key guys.
Now, I was in one of my drafts, and unfortunately, it's a PPR, 3 wide receivers, full point PPR. So I had the second pick. I went JJ, AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, and then my next pick was Tony Pollard. So I'm leaning on Tony Pollard, and with Spears out, and if his offensive line is good, I think Pollard's in line to have a good season.
Yeah, Pollard was one of the lone bright spots for the Titans last year, and especially with Spears being hurt, like you said, it's a easy buy low candidate for Tony Pollard. So I like that pick.
Let's go ahead. Let's shift our attention to the Jacksonville Jaguars. 80-1 to win the Super Bowl, 38-1 to win the AFC, plus 300 to win the South, over under 7.5 to make the playoffs, plus 179 to miss the playoffs, minus 234. What say you, my friend?
Yeah, I love the fresh new culture they've got brewing in Jacksonville. You got the young GM, James Gladstone. You got Liam Cohen coming in. Both are eager to make their imprint on Jaguars football. They're taking big swings in the draft, trading up for Travis Hunter. And I'm curious to see if Travis Hunter can be the Shohei Ohtani of football. But it's kind of wait and see. I'm not 100% sure. Also, another question I'm asking, does T. Law have another year? Trevor Lawrence have another year inside of him? And then also, I'm one of the few kind of hesitant people about an offensive coordinator taking over the head coach gig. And the reason why I'm somewhat skeptical of what Liam Cohen's going to do is because if you think about just running an offense, you're solely focused on running an offense and game planning and scheming for the defense. And then you step into a head coach position, and there's so many different things that you have to do, managing the locker room, managing guys' expectations, being a CEO type for the defense, and all these different things. I'm just curious if Liam Cohen's going to be able to do that year one. I know some other coaches have done it and had a ton of success with it, but it's not an easy gig. Some people just make it look easy. So I'm kind of concerned about that. And then as far as Trevor Lawrence, I heard someone describe him as the Andrew Wiggins of the NFL. I actually think that fits perfectly because you think about Trevor Lawrence going back, he was the golden boy who was promised, supposed to be the best QB prospect since Andrew Luck. But that steady track of development hasn't been there since. I don't know if Liam Cohen's going to unlock him. I just kind of think this is who Trevor Lawrence is, a good, solid quarterback, but he's never going to reach that potential that we thought he had. I could be wrong. I'd love to see him prove me wrong, but I don't know. And especially when he doesn't have a consistent run game to lean on. They took turns between Tank Bigsby last year, Travis Etienne. They also drafted Bashel Tutin. So I don't really know if they're going to have a consistent run game. That would help Trevor Lawrence out a lot. And then as far as how Travis Hunter is going to be utilized, I'm curious to see. It looks like they're going to be having him line up more as wide receiver. I thought he was a better corner prospect than he was a wide receiver prospect. So I think that could be a miss on their part there. But I do think this defense will be pretty solid. They've got a great edge duo between Josh Hines-Allen and Trey Walker. And then the linebacking core is pretty good, Oluokun and Devin Lloyd. And they've got a solid secondary. So they got a decent team. I just don't know if it's all going to come together in year one. So I've got the Jags at about 7-10, 8-9.
So they drafted Hunter. Hunter could be that lockdown corner, and then you put Campbell on the other side of the field where you could play zone. That's what I thought they're going to do. But it looks like they're going to play him on offense more than defense, which to me doesn't make any sense because he's better defensively than he is offensively, as crazy as it sounds. So it's, and what's the analogy I can use? There's some people that say stuff and do stuff you just trust it's going to be wrong. Okay. Am I wrong? You know what I mean? There's certain teams you just trust that stuff is going to be wrong, and I really feel that that's what's going on here.
Yeah, the Jaguars haven't earned the benefit of the doubt by any means.
My notes with the good old Jaguars. New offensive line coach, first season in Jacksonville. Last year, offensive line 20th in pass blocking, 26th in run blocking, 7 sacks allowed, 18th in adjusted yards. Made some changes. They lost Morse to retirement. Brandon Sheriff departed. They brought in Hainsley from the Bucks, McCurry from the Ravens, and Walter Little. I just don't think this unit is elite. I think it's a good blend of younger players and vets. I need to see what this coaching is going to be able to do. I really couldn't find anything on the new offensive line coach with jumps from year to year because this is his first time being an offensive line coach. So I really don't know what he's going to bring to the table. Now with Lawrence, this is his third offense in 5 years, and his development has been rocky. When we look at Liam Cohn, Sean McVay disciple, helped Baker Mayfield thrive last year. Mayfield had his best season ever last year. Relies heavily on 11 personnel, spreading the field, lots of 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. One thing I did notice when I looked at the target share last year with the Bucks, 21% of the target share was the running back. And the big question is this: can Cohn do for Lawrence what he did for Mayfield? I mean, that's the question I'm posing to you.
Yeah.
You
My
think
opinion is no. That's why I think Trevor Lawrence is just who he is. Might get a slight bump up just because from the scheme, and the lack of a run game is going to force him to throw a lot. But I don't expect a jump.
Now, another thing I need to ask you, my friend, is where is it? I am sorry. I'm having some microphone trouble here, so I apologize for that. Running room, back room is crowded. You have Travis Etienne, fits the system well. You have Tank Bisbee, who took over for him last year. You draft 2 in the rookie, fumbling concerns. Which one of these guys do you think is going to be the guy?
Had the same question for you, but my pick is Tank Bigsby. I think he's going to emerge as the lead back before the end of the year. I think Tootin, there's a lot of excitement. I've seen him shoot up draft boards in fantasy football, but I think he's still a year away before. They've got 2 solid running backs ahead of him, but I think Tank Bigsby is going to be the one to cement himself as a clear running back 1 for the end of the year.
Now let's go to Brian Thomas Jr. Okay.
Yeah, absolute stud.
Let's talk a little BT. This is my worry point. 21st in targets per route run, 23rd in first read targets. Lawrence is a first read quarterback, limits upside. He had 130 targets last year. I don't think he's going to be able to repeat that in this scheme. Now, with Trevor Lawrence, 9 games, 53 targets, 35 receptions, 595 yards. 8 games with Mac Jones. So less games with Mac Jones. 80 targets, 52 receptions, 687 yards. I really, 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 really want to fade Brian Thomas Jr. in everything this year. I'm not gonna take him in fantasy for sure.
Wow.
His yards propage was 1150. I wanted to do it, but I wasn't able to pull the picture because also we mentioned it before. Hunter's going to be coming in. Primo athlete, raw wide receiver. But I think the Jags, as you hinted to, are going to play him at wide receiver more to justify taking him that early into trading like that much stuff for him. Then you have the RB share to the running backs. Then you also have Washington, who is another dynamic wide receiver. I just don't think there's enough ball.
Too, so yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't think there's only one ball. And I think that 130 last year was the ceiling. And Lawrence, through half the season, didn't really target him at all.
Okay. And as you alluded to, mentioning Travis Hunter, question for you: his over/under prop is set to 750.5 receiving yards. Does he hit that over or under for you?
I think he's going to hit the under because I think if he's playing both ends, all these guys are going to do is just like Kelsey said in that interview, just run nothing but go routes with him. You know, and then he's going to be tired and he's going to be sucking wind. Projecting it out, that is, what is that? So we got 595 divided by 9 games. So that's 66.1 yard per game times 17 games. So he's at 1124 with Lawrence for a whole year. Defensively, loaded front seven, underperformed badly, third fewest pressures, fifth fewest sacks, playing more vision zone than matchup zone. Questionable if they have the talent in the secondary to do that. That's the big concern. Now, Tyus Campbell is awful. I've made a killing last year targeting whoever was going against Tyson Campbell. Him being on the field lowers the ceiling of this defense, especially if Hunter's not going to be on the defense, not going to be on their side, being a lockdown guy. Questions are this: can they mold the offensive line into a top unit? Is Liam Cohen's system going to unlock Trevor Lawrence? Or are you ready for my question to you? Is Trevor Lawrence just the guy that had one good season at Clemson? Since entering the NFL, 19th in wins. Are you ready for this, my friend?
Mm-hmm.
The most losses, 36 in completion percentage, 36 in QBR, excuse me. Fourth most INTs, 29th in success rate. I mean, like, literally, if he has one more year like he had last year, we really need to start having a conversation about Trevor Lawrence. And I'm going to fade, as I mentioned, I'm going to fade Brian Thomas Jr. I think Travis Etienne and best ball, because of how much the running backs are using the passing game. When you get to the end of your drafts, I think he's going to be a sneaky pick. But I also feel like this year, the Jags are like the Falcons. Last year, everyone had the Falcons making the playoffs. I personally didn't. We bet on the show last year them not to make the playoffs, and we cashed it. I feel like the Jags are it this year because everyone on social media that I'm seeing has the Jags performing well, has them winning the division, has them making the playoffs. I'm a little bit down. I don't think they made the playoffs. I didn't do anything on them. I'm trying to talk myself into getting some balls and taking the Brian Thomas Jr. under yardage prop.
That's a spicy one. They're first I've heard that hasn't been on Brian Thomas Jr. So, yeah, that's why we come to the show.
Let's go ahead. Let's look at the Colts. 110 to 1 to win the Super Bowl, 46 to 1 to win the AFC. Plus 370 to win the South. Over under 6.5 to make the playoffs. Plus 208 to miss the playoffs. Minus 265. What say you about the Blue Horseshoe?
Yeah, so the Blue Horseshoe, so they're kind of in a weird spot as a franchise. You think about the death of Jim Irsay, obviously a storied owner, meant a lot to the people of Indianapolis. And then they've got this decent team, like the Bones on the roster. They're all there. But they're stuck in this QB purgatory between Richardson and Jones. And I know obviously they just announced that they're going with Daniel Jones as a starter, but I kind of understand wherever you're coming from, whether you're a fan, whether you were Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard, whether you're just the Colts in general. Because if you're a fan, from the fan's perspective, I'd rather go 4-13 with Anthony Richardson than 7-10 with Daniel Jones, right? That makes sense so that we can get our next quarterback. We can get Garrett Nussmeier or Arch Manning or whoever the next guy that comes out is going to be. But if I'm Shane Steichen, Chris Ballard, I'm trying to save my job. So Daniel Jones gives me a better chance to win football games than Anthony Richardson at this point. And also, too, with the resurgence of a ton of different quarterbacks over the past couple of years, you look at Geno Smith, you look at Sam Darnold, you look at Baker Mayfield, you can kind of convince yourself that Daniel Jones could have that resurgence. Not saying that I think it's going to happen, but if I'm Shane Steichen, I can at least get in that mindset that might happen. But the Colts, if you look at the Colts, nobody wants Anthony Richardson to be good more than the Colts themselves. And so if you're looking at them and you're seeing them side by side in practice and Daniel Jones beat out Anthony Richardson, that doesn't bode well. Maybe Anthony Richardson isn't that good. And this has been a story for Anthony Richardson's career. Like, if you remember last year, I came on here and I said he was the biggest X factor in the entire NFL season because if he hit, then the Colts are in a completely different trajectory than we're talking about right now. But obviously, he didn't hit, and now the Colts have more questions than answers. So, tons of things right there about the Colts. But I also, too, I'm seeing a lot of people say the Colts are going to suck. The Colts are going to win 4 or 5 games. I actually don't think that's the case. The past 2 years, they've been just 1 game away. If you remember, it was a Granson dropped an easy pass 2 years ago that kept them out of the playoffs. And then Jonathan Taylor made a boneheaded fumble, dropped it at the 1-yard line, kept them out of the playoffs last year. So 2 straight years in a row with kind of like underperforming rosters in terms of roster talent, they were able to get right there to the finish line. So I think Shane Steichen's a good coach. And then if you remember, they brought in Lou Anarumo from the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yep.
He was the kind of defensive mastermind for those Bengals years when they were having a ton of success. Ultimately, things fell off as they focused on the offense more and he didn't really have the pieces. But I think they have a really good coaching in place to get a lot from them. Also, too, Michael Pittman Jr. was dealing with a back injury all last year. He's back and healthy now. So I think there's a way for the Colts to be just a tough team that nobody wants to play. Not saying they're going to go on any type of historical run. I think their ceiling's clearly capped. But I think they're going to be a solid team that's going to be a tough out every single week.
Thank you for opening up that wound for the Jonathan Taylor fumble because I was invested in that game. Thank you for that. Now, we need to remember that Shane Steichen almost got them into the playoffs with Joe Flacco and with Gardner Minshew. So let's look at them. 11th in pass blocking, 4th run blocking, 7 sacks allowed, 28th adjusted yards. They lost Kelly, their center, and Fries, the right guard, both now in Minnesota. Now they're replacing him with Bortolli, the center, 351 snaps last year, 0 sacks, graded 19th out of 51 eligible centers. Second-year player going to take a step forward. And Gona Cavs will be the right guard, 556 snaps at tackle last season, now moving to the inside, allowed only 3 sacks, 22 pressures. I think the offensive line is better because of those two going to Minnesota. You got Quentin Nelson, top 10 PFF overall, one of the best guards in the game. You got CMU's finest, Rainman, quietly becoming elite. Back-to-back seasons of over 82 PFF grade. Only 2 hits allowed on the quarterback last season in 856 snaps. And they bring in Brandon Smith at the right tackle. I think this offensive line has the potential to be a top 5 unit with who they have on the field. Colts, last 2 years were built around Anthony Richardson's dual threat ability. Both seasons ended with him in injury. They relied on Minshew and Flacco. Backup choices in the past didn't fit the system. This year, they brought in Daniel Jones, a quarterback that could run the RPO system if Richardson gets hurt. Now, Richardson, 47.7 completion percentage, 8 to 12 TD to INT ratio, 18% deep throw rate. Daniel Jones, let's look at him. 6th highest on target throw percentage in 2024, 9.1% deep throw rate, much more accurate and control, sneaky mobility, fits the system. And he went out and he won the job. And I really feel that Steichen knows that with the new ownership, this is kind of a make or break season for him. If he starts Richardson and they struggle, he's probably going to be out of the job. He needs, in my eyes, he's one of the coaches. He needs to get in the playoffs for him to keep his job, especially with the new ownership. Now, Jim Bob Cooter, shotgun heavy, a lot of 3-4 wide receiver sets. RPO base used to freeze the linebackers. 8 86 carries in 11 games for Richardson. Because of that, call me crazy. I think Daniel Jones in some weeks is going to be viable in DFS. He's going to be viable on bye weeks in fantasy football. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, I think are both going to have good seasons with Daniel Jones. I think Tyler Warren is going to be good just because when we look at what Jones did, 5th highest read rate to tight ends when he played for the Giants. So he is going to look for Tyler Warren. I think we could see Tyler Warren actually be used in some wildcat formation like he was with Penn State. One of the most diverse rushing attacks. They use look, power gap, and a lot of zone. Taylor, 5.2 yards per carry on gap reads, 4.39 on zones. Colts ranked 8th in rushing yards and yards per carry last season. I think this QB threat makes this ground game brutal to defend. I think Taylor is set up for a monster season. I was hoping to get a very good number on him for him to lead the league in rushing. I just couldn't get the number I wanted. Now, you mentioned Lou Abarigo. I think no Gus Bradley here makes this defense 25 times better because Gus Bradley didn't design. You knew it was just basic cover 3 bullshit. With Big Lou, multi-front, disguise heavy man coverage, single high safety, rarely blitzes. Defensive line is versatile with Glover Stewart, DeForest Buckner. Edge rushers are going to be able to get to the quarterback because of the press coverage. They bring in Ward, who's going to help with the DB in the back 4. Kenny Moore is going to slide over to the nickel. Safeties are going to be better. Colts defense is going to take a major step forward. They're going to be able to keep pressure. They're not going to be able to be thrown on as easily as they were. But when we look at the big picture, new ownership, does that mean potential culture shift? Do they look, if they start out slow, look to make a quick coaching change with Shane Steichen? I think the offensive line is going to be bigger, is going to be better than people think. My big, bold statement, I think with Taylor, Pittman, Downs, and Warren, and Jones' ability to run the RBO, I think this is a top 10 offense. I think the defense is going to take a step forward. They almost made the playoffs with Gardner Minshew. Now they have a stronger roster. I bet the Colts plus 400 to win the AFC South, man. Give me a little blue horseshoe.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
Did you see this? Now, let me ask you a question. Did you see the CBS Sports thing? They compared Daniel Jones. His stats are basically the same as Trevor Lawrence. Okay.
No, I didn't see that. Yeah.
But here's my thing. They're stat-wise, they're the same guy. If Trevor Lawrence was coming to the Colts to be their quarterback, what would your opinion be of him?
Right. Like higher. Was the higher.
But you know what I'm saying? But you're in the same guy, just with a different name, who was put in a no-win situation in New York. You have a guy, Shane Steichen, who I like, going to be coaching for his job. You have potentially a top 5 offensive line. You have one of the better running backs in the game. You have 2 good wide receivers. You have an explosive young tight end, Lou Amorino, coaching defense. Call me crazy. I think their ceiling's 11 wins. I am buying the Indianapolis Colts. Give me them plus 400 to win the division. I'm down in the Jags, and obviously I'm going to be down in the Texans, which we're going to talk to in a little bit. And I'm not the biggest Ward guy. Someone's got to win the division. Why not the Colts, dude?
Yeah. Okay.
Why not Indy?
Interesting. First I've heard of that. One other bet before we move on. I think Michael Pittman, 1,000 yards, plus 360 on FanDuel.
Like that one.
Yeah, especially back, healthy. Going to have way more consistent passing, like you mentioned with Daniel Jones. I think that's good bet.
Did you see what they're doing here? You mentioned FanDuel. Did you see what they're doing here in Illinois?
No, when you said that I was like, wow,
they're
crazy.
The government increased the taxes. So like circa now, $10 minimum bet. Bet 365, Hard Rock, they haven't said anything. But FanDuel, DraftKings, 50 cents per bet. You have to add an extra 50 cents, which I know people are like, that's not a lot, but over time, that shit adds up more than people realize. And on Fanatics and Caesars, 25 cents a bet. Bet MGM, they just raised what their floor bet was. Circa, as I said, did, and one other one raised it. So I mean, it's good. I really feel that we're going to see more sports books do this. And look, I still use my offshore books. I think it's going to drive people back to offshores, or this peer-to-peer thing's really taken off. These sports betting exchanges like ProphetX, Bet Openly. I think those are going to have a little bit bigger say, if you will. Let's go ahead to the last team, the Houston Texans, 30-1 to win the Super Bowl, plus 475 to win the AFC. Even money to win the South, over under 9.5 to make the playoffs, minus 130 to not make the playoffs, plus 111. What say you about the Houston Texans, my friend?
So I am higher on the Houston Texans. If you rewind back to last year, coming in off of CJ Stroud's incredible rookie season, they were touted as this Super Bowl contender or this outside candidate to compete for the AFC, and then they kind of fell flat. Like CJ Stroud, he was still good. I don't really agree that people said he was really bad last year, but he was still good. It just wasn't as successful as his rookie season. They kind of fell back in multiple ways. Nico Collins didn't look as good, Nico Collins looked great, but then he got hurt, so that kind of tampered the offense. But I think they're going to be back. They're going to take a step forward, like you just said. They've got a top 10 QB in CJ Stroud. Nico Collins was on pace to lead the league in multiple different receiving categories. So he's a solidified top 10 guy, and I actually have a future on him. He's plus 2,000 to win Offensive Player of the Year on DraftKings. I love that sprinkle. I put a couple sprinkles on that. So I think CJ Stroud's going to be throwing the ball. I think they've put more trust in his hand. He's going to be able to make checks at the line now. But I think this is going to be a questionable run game, so it kind of gives me a little bit of pause. Obviously, Joe Mixon's dealing with some health issues. Nick Chubb's dealt with his injury issues in the past. They got that rookie running back, I believe, Woody Marks. Not sure if he's going to be able to take the league by storm.
Damian Pierce, baby. Damian Pierce. Pierce time.
Okay. That's all about Florida. He's fine. And then questionable O-line. The O-line is pretty pitiful. I won't lie there. But they have a lot of changes, a lot of new people coming in. So that could actually be a good thing for them. But where I'm really excited about the Texans is because they've got a top 3 defense in the NFL. So if you think about like Bill Belichick retiring, D'Amico Ryans might be the best defensive mind in the NFL. And that's just going to automatically make games easier from that perspective. D'Amico Ryans' run defense hasn't been top 3 in 4 to 5 years. So automatically they're going to have a great run defense. Then they're going to have a great pass defense too, because they've got the best pass rushing duo in the NFL. Will Anderson might take another leap forward. Danielle Hunter has been consistent time and time again. So between those two things, they're going to be great. Then they got Derek Stingley on the back end. So the pass coverage is going to be good as well with an elite cover corner like that. So I love this Texans defense. And I think the offense with a top 10 quarterback, top 10 wide receiver, they're going to be solid. So a solid offense, an elite defense, and a division with a ton of question marks. I've seen I'm actually a Giants fan, even though I'm wearing a Titans shirt. So I've seen the Daniel Jones experiment firsthand. So I'm not betting on the Colts. And with the Jaguars, not betting on Trevor Lawrence. And then Titans, they've got a couple years away. So I love the Texans. I actually love plus 110 for the division. It's even money, and I don't really trust any of these other teams.
I'd like to thank my girl, Lady D, for the repost on the X. God, so you're into the Texans, okay?
Type sleeper.
Offensive line. 19th pass blocking, 27th run blocking, 29th sacks allowed, 24th adjusted yards. They lose Laramie Tunsil via trade. Shaq Mason was released. Both were their best linemen last season. They had added Cam Robinson, Trent Brown, Laken Tomlinson, Ed Ingram. They drafted Irisay in the 2nd round. Blake Fisher, the rookie from last season, allowed 4 sacks, 18 pressures on only 337 sacks. Center Patterson regressed after a strong rookie season. They bring in Cole Popovich, switching from the power gap to more outside zone as a new offensive line coach. So I look at this. They're deeper. They don't have an anchor left tackle, and I think their talent's a little bit ground. But I think the outside zone fits the personnel, and since the outside zone, the scheme can kind of block the players on the line's deficiencies, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Because with zone blocking, you're able to hide so much shit. And I think that's going to be the case here with the Houston Texans. Caley, offensive coordinator, they're moving away from the Shanahan stuff that they did with this. It's going to become more McVay now, West Coast structure designed to use the pass to set up the run, a lot of quick routes. CJ Stroud, another thing, he's going to be giving full control at the line of scrimmage. He's going to be able to audible anything. Caley's going to call the play. Stroud can do anything. So Stroud literally has the key to the castle. I think we're going to see more deep shots with Stroud having the cuffs kind of taken off. He was only 18th in deep throws last season. And we look at this wide receiver room. Nico Collins, Xavier Hutchinson, Christian Kirk, Braxton Berrios, Justin Watson, and then they just drafted both Iowa State rookies in Higgins and Noel. This wide receiver room is absolutely loaded. Lots of formations and options. I think we're going to see a ton of 4 wide receiver sets. Now, last year under Bobby Sloak, the run system did not fit what the running backs have. They switched more to a power gap at midseason. That allowed Mixon and Dameon Pierce both to thrive. But look, Mixon, ankle injury. He's on the PUP list, out at least 4 games. Could linger into week 6, week 8. We don't know. They signed my boy Nick Chubb, and I fucking love Nick Chubb. But it's 2025 right now. Nick Chubb, my knees are better than Nick Chubb's fucking knees. Okay. I think Dameon Pierce could be the running back. We're like, oh shit, look at Dameon Pierce finally living up to the hype coming out of Florida. I think they're going to be more aggressive offensively. I think Stroud getting the keys. I think we're going to see him take a leap from year 2 to year 3. But I think, how can I word this? It's going to be a week-to-week offense I target in DFS. Defensively, look, 4-2-5 relies heavily on the front 4 to create pressure. You got Hunter and Anderson, 11 sacks each. Top 3 DVOA versus the run last year. Second adjusted yards. A solid defense. Cover 3, disguises, rotation to bait the quarterback. They layer the coverage. They had the highest opponent ADOT in the NFL last season. Gardner Johnson adds a ball hawk. Petrie is in the star role, hybrid safety cornerback, blitzes often. Dude, this defense, strength in the front 4, schemes relies heavily on the pass rush. My fear is regression. How many times has there been this elite defense and then the following year they're just bad for no reason? And if that happened to the Texans, that wouldn't surprise me. Stroud, when we look at it, plateaued last year. I think he's going to take a step forward. What's going on in the running back room? I'm worried about the offensive line down the grade, potential regression with the defense. I really like Nico Collins. In the draft I just did, I was really hoping to get Nico Collins in the second round. Didn't fall that way. But I want nothing to do with this team. I really think it's going to be interesting offensively. I think they could be a little bit more explosive. I think Stroud is in line for probably a good fantasy season.
Yeah. Another bet I have related to CJ Stroud is he's plus 550 on DraftKings for 30 touchdowns. He hasn't done that yet in his career, but if you think about the running backs, Chubb, Mixon, injured, Dameon Pierce, will he live up to the hype? I think he's going to throw the ball a lot more, and a full season of Nico Collins being healthy and being a top 10 wide receiver, I think he reaches that 30 touchdown mark.
So if you had to predict the order of finish, not the records, let's just predict the order of finish here.
Yeah. So I've got Texans 1, Colts 2, Jaguars 3, Titans 4.
Okay. I have Colts 1, Texans 2, Jags 3, Titans 4.
Okay.
Now, another big question I have about the Jags is there's been a number of these like quote unquote geniuses, defensive geniuses, namely offensive, that are supposed to be like the next guy, but they've all struggled except for guys that were under McVay. Is Cohen, who's raised everywhere he's gone, was at Kentucky, LA, Tampa, is he going to be able to do that, or is he just quirky and he's just not a guy that can command the room?
Yeah, I don't know if he's a CEO leadership type, and I think that might spell trouble.
Will 2 teams make the playoffs from this division?
No, I've got one.
If
what about you?
I think, see, I want to be different and say 2, but I think only 1. I really, you know what I mean? I want to be different, but I don't want to be different just to be different.
Right.
I really only think there's 1.
Okay, so if you had to put a record, since you had the Texans number 2, what would you say they finish at?
I think 9.
9 wins.
9 wins.
I mean,
9 and 8. I think the Jags will be. A lot of coaching questions here. So my question to you is this: what do you agree with me that Shane Steichen has to make the playoffs for the Colts for him to keep his job?
I don't think it should be that way, but it is.
If the Jags have another year where they win like 6 or 7 games, do you think they can move on from Lawrence?
Yeah. He puts up another 23 touchdown, 14 interception year. They have to think about that.
Now, if the Titans have another 3 or 4, let's say the Titans have a 4-win season, could they move on from Callahan after 2 years?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. They did it with the GM, Rand Carthon, pretty recently. The ownership showed that they're willing to get rid of people.
Sterling, I'd like to thank you for coming on. I always appreciate when you do this. You got a million things going on in your life. Appreciate you taking time, coming on, talking a little shop. Feels we've been talking for 2 minutes. It's been 50 minutes, almost an hour. So I always love that. Look forward to having you on again. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media and give everyone that promise that you do every time that you're going to start posting more, and you always let us know.
Don't call me out like that. But I mean, I did give a couple posts here and there the past couple weeks.
You did.
I mean,
You did.
we're slowly picking our way up. We just don't dive fully into it. But anyways, yeah, find me on SilverStar Sports. That's SilverStar_sports on Instagram. I post a little bit about like surprise teams for the NFL. I posted some preseason predictions. So as we get into it, and I'm watching sports because sports are back on, I've got opinions, so I'm going to share them. So give me a follow there.
Give that man a follow. Knows his stuff. I mean, like I said, when I started doing this, he was the first guy I reached out to. Anytime I asked him to do something, he just never replies with anything more than yes. He's like, yeah, I'll be there. So I appreciate for that. Give this guy a follow. Look forward to having him on during the NFL season and during the NBA season once that starts going. Talk soon, my friend. Best of luck in all your bets, and hopefully you do better in the guillotine league than you did last year, my friend.
Oh yeah, I didn't.
Hopefully you do better. Make sure you tune us in next week. We'll be talking week 1 of the NFL. As crazy as it sounds. Best of luck in all your bets, and we'll talk soon, my friend.
Have a good one. Thanks.